As an administrator, a good portion of your job is going to be resolving issues and avoiding potential issues. To do that, you want to make sure that you're monitoring your servers as they should be, monitoring the event log, the ULS logs for any errors that come up, and so on. And there's a process that you're going to go to, or that you're going to go through. You receive a report of a problem that a site is slow or it's no longer rendering pages. One of the first things that you would do in that situation is go to IIS. And to do that, you'll click on All Programs, Administrative Tools, IIS Internet Information Services Manager. Let's expand this. And we'll expand the server. It's going to provide the name of the server, the application pools associated with that server, and all sites that are on the WFEs. If a site has been stopped, most of the time it could just be a site's been stopped or an app pool needs to be recycled. But the first thing to do is just come in and see if you see any sites that have been stopped. Right-click on it, and you can choose to explore, and you can see what's in there. These are the folders, and notice that it's located in the root off of the C drive. You will want to change that. When it comes to making changes in IIS, you never want to make specific changes in here unless it's recommended by Microsoft. But let's go ahead and start the site. If we want to start it, you have to come over to the Actions panel on the right-hand side and choose Start. Not very complicated. You can restart the site or the web application, or you can just stop it or restart it as needed. And you can also choose to browse to it. So let's stop the site. And notice it has a little black dot in the bottom right corner. So it'll visually let you know right away if any of your sites are stopped. You would want to go in and start the site. If an IIS reset, or if you just created a new web application, it does an IIS reset, and occasionally it does not restart all the sites. So if that's just recently occurred and then users are complaining that they can't access the sites, however, you should not be doing this during production hours, come into IIS and verify that the sites are up and running. If I try to browse to the site, it's going to give me an error. Internet Explorer cannot display the page. So let's restart the site. We're going to highlight it, come to our Actions panel, and click Start. Now let's browse over to the site. Whenever an IIS reset has been performed, it takes just a couple of additional seconds to load the page. And now we can access it. Another thing to keep in mind if somebody says they can't access the site is if the application pool is running. These are all the application pools associated with the services and with the sites that have been installed. You may have one application pool that's utilized for multiple websites. Be careful of that though, because if one application pool goes down, it'll take down all of the sites associated with it. If I click on Employee Site, I can choose to recycle it. If it's utilizing too many resources, that's where this comes into play. So if I right-click on it, I can stop the application pool, and you'll notice that it looks the same with the dot underneath it. And you'll see down here that the SharePoint Web Services root web application pool is stopped. Don't worry about that. That will only start when the system needs it to, and then it will stop it again. Go ahead and right-click on Employee and choose Start. The next thing to do is to ensure that the account associated with the service application has not been logged. So whatever identity is here, you will want to go into Active Directory and determine if that account has been logged. And to do that, you go to Start, Administrative Tools, if you have the permissions for this. Odds are, if it's a fairly decent size organization, you're not going to have access to Active Directory users and computers. Click on it, and then double-click Administrator. You have multiple tabs here. Click the Account tab. It would have a checkbox here if the account were locked. Unlock it, and everything should work as expected. Those are 3 of the main things that you'll need to check immediately if a site is not working. Don't dilly-dally. If your users are complaining, get right into IIS and validate those 2 components and ensure that the application pool is not locked. And in some situations, a simple recycle of the application pool will resolve the issue. Let's go into our event viewer. If that doesn't resolve the issue, then this is where you'll need to go. And you get there by going to Start, Administrative Tools, Event Viewer, or you can get to that via Server Manager. We're going to Windows Logs, Application. And you would browse through the different warnings to see if anything displays that could be a potential problem or the cause of the problem at hand. We have a couple of warnings here, but nothing that would be relevant to a site being down. But this is an area you're going to be very, very familiar with, and you'll be spending a lot of time in there. If you're lucky, your organization has a tool like SCOM, System Center Operations Manager. It's got management packets specific to SharePoint Foundation and SharePoint Server for 2010, and it has management packs available for 2007 that are geared just for SharePoint. Now, since we're in the event viewer, you want to be very careful. You could have quite a bit of information in here, and you need to filter out specific errors. Let's say that we want to see all of the event IDs 7362. I would simply right-click on Application, Filter Current Log. We can choose at the top, logged anytime. Do we just want to see the last 12 hours, the last 24 hours? The event level, critical, warning, verbose, error information. And then down here is where we would put in the actual event number. If we have more than one event ID that we want to filter on, we could add multiple ones. Let's add a second one. We're going to add 2137, and you separate them by commas, or if you have a range of numbers, you would separate those with the dash. You can enter keywords, response time, audit success, audit failure. If you want to audit by a specific user, you may certainly do that, or by a specific computer. Go ahead and click OK. And now we've kind of gotten rid of all the informationals, and we're down to specific errors that have happened in the last 24 hours. And we can sort them by event ID. We have 4 that are health related. And when it says health, that's referring to the SharePoint Health Analyzer. Once we clear up the drive space, these will clear out. We're in a demo environment, so this is just fine for our purposes. If we want to clear the filter and bring it back to the default, right-click on Application and choose Clear Filter. Let's go back to IIS. Now, in IIS, you have some additional options that are available to you when it comes to logging. You're going to see, once you click on a site on the left-hand panel, in the middle panel for Employee Sites Home, which happens to be the one we have selected, you're going to see an icon under IIS referred to as Logging. Go ahead and double-click it. And you'll see that it's doing 1 log file per site. It provides the format, and it tells you where the directory is. It's going to be the system drive inetpub/log files. This is recommended to move off of the C drive. You would move that to whatever file or whatever directory you're utilizing for logs. And here's where you can select the method that IIS uses to create a new log file. Is it going to create a new one daily, hourly, or weekly? Maximum file size, you might want to set that so you don't overload the drive. Or you can choose do not create new log files and only turn it on when you're having an error, which isn't always recommended. I recommend leave it on, and if you need to, limit it by file size. And you would choose apply, cancel, or disable. We're not going to save any changes. So let's go look at where our log files are located. They're on the C drive, and we validated that just a moment ago in the iNet pub folder under logs, and then log files. And you'll see we have two because we have only 2 web applications, and if you double click one and open it up, it's going to give you some additional information. It's going to tell you it has a get and go through the different process. These are useful, but they're not utilized as much as some of the other ones are. For instance, the ULS logs. If you click on the folder icon again, we're going to browse over to the ULS logs. We're going to go to Program Files, Common Files, Microsoft Shared, Web Server Extensions, and to the SharePoint root. In here we have our logs. And you would double click one of these, and it'll go through and give you some information. It'll tell you the time, the process that was running, the area, whether it's SharePoint Search, Foundation, which are the core components of SharePoint. They're not very pretty, but you can export them to Excel to manipulate them a bit. It's going to give you the event ID, and you'll notice to the right it also is going to provide the level. And then it's going to give you some additional message information. Entering monitored scope for the job timer locks, and it gives you the GUID associated with that. Leaving scope, crawl report timer, job finished for SharePoint search. And it tells you whether it's medium or high, and you can search in here for errors, just like any other text document. And down here it tells us that we have a possible mismatch between the reported error and the code. It looks like access to this website has been blocked. And if there is a correlation ID, if you do get an error in SharePoint, occasionally you'll hit a site or do something and it'll come up with an error message and it'll provide a correlation ID. If that's the case, you would just come in here, type it in or paste it, and then search for it to find the information that you're looking for. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to IIS. There are occasions when you do need to reset IIS. The services are consuming too much and the server has become locked. So if you right-click, you can stop the services from here, or you can go to your command prompt and do an IIS Reset No Force, and then press enter. And it will stop and start the service. Once in a while, it'll say the service cannot be restarted. It's usually because it's still processing the stop. So go ahead and give it a couple of seconds and then run the command again.